Tell the whole story.
I don't know. Mom always had them white-legged chickens, you know, and she'd let them out in the morning. The coyotes would come up there and get them and all that stuff. So, and that's when we had that old hound dog. And you could stick him on, he'd trail anything. And sure enough, that old coyote came around, and I think Carl was with us. Then, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And who?
So you had the 30-30 went one way and you went the other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That'd be me.
Well, that all started out down in the hayfield. They stacked a bunch of hay, and using more, you couldn't get wires, bale hay, so they stacked it. And the weeds grew up there overhead high. And I was mowing this man's field and right by there, and as I did, the coyote just walked out of the weeds there. And I just drove him down to the end of the field, and the neighbors in the bar was 22 and come back up there. And needless to say, I didn't hit him sitting on the tractor getting running. And he ran out there about a half quarter across the pasture, and I shot him. Didn't kill him, but I injured him. So we got this old man. He took that cow, traced all the way up around the house and back over north. So I took the phone and went, waited on the rock. I knew where he would come back. And sure enough, the dog and the cow came back. I stopped it right there. The dog just had 3 legs. The dog got run over and hit it from high. He just had 3 legs. She couldn't run fast enough, or he couldn't run fast enough to make the cow move too fast. It didn't give me time to cut across the field and be there when it came out.
Yeah, I remember Mom throwing a fit when you brought that thing.
Oh,
When he come up there, and if you want to keep it,
they was having a coon hunters meeting at that time. The neighbor just lived a mile away from it. He was one of the big coon hunter men. Anyway, this dog came to the house, and it was just as mangy as could be. And I thought, well, maybe it was one of them they'd had on this. Well, I went to a couple of the neighbors that had hounds, and they said, no, I said, somebody just get rid of that dog. And Mama said, if you keep it, you're going to have to get it cleaned up.
Ain't no mangy dogs around here.
So it took used motor oil
We
and
did
salt.
everything on that.
Yeah, that dog cleaned up for you all right after
Clyde and I were laughing the other night. You and I were sitting there talking, and we laughed about walking home from school. We had to go through Virgil's pasture there. And we honestly did walk 2 miles to school and 2 miles back.
Uphill, all the way.
well,
Yes.
And I was sitting there, them old
A long
cows.
way.
I thought those cows would just get us.
The thing was, we could see a school, but they wouldn't let us go to it.
No,
because
we
were in
couldn't go
the
to that
city.
one. Yeah,
So we had to go through
yeah,
the range,
yeah.
and had to walk 10 miles to get to school.
Curiously enough, they haven't learned anything from that either.
they didn't want them heathens going to that school that
Well,
close.
Francis used to like this one old cow. She'd go along the fence on Matthews. That old cow be bellowing, stick her tongue out. Get over it.
But we used to pick grapes. We'd climb them trees and pick possum grapes, and we'd eat them.
Lord have
Mom
mercy.
would say, "Where y'all been?" "Well, you have purple from here."
Blackberries and grapes.
We don't know.
That'd be one of those when Carl got the whipping.
That was a different day.
You're the oldest, you're responsible.
I'd get my whipping and she said, "Tell her get out and get them chores done."
Sorry about that, kid. 70 years later.
We're telling this man, we didn't tell Mom.
Good plan.
One time you talk about these coyotes, I saw one, chase mom's chickens and went back down the field. I knew about where he'd come back up. Matthews had pushed a big ditch out with a bulldozer. And I said, well, I'll crawl down. His head over single shot 22. So I said, I'll crawl down there about where that's at and get that thing. Well, I crawled about where I thought it was at. That thing jumped right over me and shot up here. The old coyote took off. I know it.
Who was more scared?
Okay, it's one of those things. Hey, I want to hear Teresa's.
Well, I don't have any good stories.
Tell me anyway, Terry.
He's been gone long enough for us to remember.
Well, you can make them up. I wouldn't know.
These
Well,
are
these
all
all gonna be
true
true stories.
Oh, yeah.
Like the rest of them.
You'll notice some of their noses are getting
To go in my ears.
to go in the ears.
But I'll tell you something about John, when he was going to school, he was always studying something. And, he got out of school when he was 15, he finished high school. People wanted to send him to school with them up at Norman OU, and Mom said, no, she had read too much about them schools and things.
That's bad.
She wouldn't
was
let him
party
go up there
school.
because he was just 15. And, but I always wondered about him because he had a big old notepad, one just line tablet,
Big
and he was figuring out how to square a circle. They always said you can't square a circle. And he'd fill that whole book full of figures that he had working on. I said, you know, I went all through high school and I never even thought about that. But here he was trying to square a circle, and I never even heard about it. But he had that whole book. In the summertime, that's all he did. Sit there when he.
Oh, my mom said he was special. It's a shame that you didn't share some of that knowledge. Oh, Grandma's first shot at babies was the best.
They set the standard so high, the rest of them couldn't catch
Rest
up.
of it didn't even get to me.
Well, we shared them, we forgot it, or didn't know what he's talking about.
Well, I didn't have anything for the farm because I mostly wasn't there. I mean, but you know, and we worked there because, you know, Oklahoma's kind of in the middle of the country. And we either lived in Washington D.C. or we lived in Eureka in California. So it was not as far away as you can get from Oklahoma in any given direction. But I did talk to him a little bit about stuff, and he was saying that he decided by about the time that he'd gotten out of Connors, and he decided he was going to go to college. And so
Yeah, well.
yeah, he wasn't well, and then he figured he'd give it a couple more years, give your dad a couple more years, and then Leonard and the rest of you could kind of take on what he was doing, and then he would go ahead and go to college. I mean, he really intended to do that always, which I didn't know. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and then so
That's enough to change your mind.
well, it sort of changed everybody's mind, and it changed it like that. So he enlisted, I don't know when.
43.
Was it 40? Well, it had to be earlier than that, because he
Yeah,
got
I was gonna
accepted in
say.
the Army Air Corps as a cadet in October of 42. And the reason I know any of this stuff is I've got all of his records here. All of his military records.
Squared in there.
Well, I know he I know he
She
did go in
trusted us a
service.
lot, didn't she? I'm not sure he did volunteer, but it was.
Right, but it took a
somebody
while
else did that,
before it
right.
Does that tell how to square that circle?
No, he missed that part. I didn't bring that notebook. So he got accepted, and in October of 42, he washed out of pilot training in February of 43. He was going to be a pilot, but being as he crashed their plane,
That's not as
they decided they didn't need any more pilots like that. So he went to navigation school, and he.
So they're not gonna let him guide it now.
That's right. I think he points the way. He just doesn't get to
Up there,
land it
guys.
anymore.
Got him, but he was fly.
So he finished that in 1943, and let's see, September 1943 and February 1944, he and the rest of the crew that on their, I guess it was a B-20 what? B-24, they departed for the European theater via Brazil. to Africa.
That's a long way home, and then Morocco.
There's that navigator.
He was squaring that circle on
I think so.
We gotta figure that to be 24, wouldn't go directly.
Apparently.
Yeah, so, he said they flew at dead reckoning, he said, because they couldn't see the ocean at all, I mean, they couldn't see anything, it was cloudy the whole time, he said. They came within 30 miles of where they intended to land when they got there on the other side. I still think that's remarkable.
I do too.
Yeah, and you think about the planes then, because a lot of them, I've seen them in the Smithsonian, and they look like erector sets. You know, they've got these holes punched in this metal. They got rivets through it to hold it together. They've got this metal skin. They got no air conditioning or heating, so they're, you know, and they're flying at altitude, so they've got their bomber's jackets and their gloves and their boots and everything else they can use to keep warm when they're flying. And
They could have used nuggets.
good. I don't have the book with me here, but he had a list of all the people that he was on the crew with, and the name of the plane was Gremlin, and the pilot's name was Grim, and that's why they called it that. So he flew his first mission of 50 missions on April of 1944, and I'm not sure where he flew from, whether it was Morocco, because I think the first few missions had to be out of Africa, because I don't think they'd taken Italy at that time, because that's where eventually he ended up. And the base was in Italy, and I'm not even sure where that is, where they were based there. What he did tell me was it rained all the time, and so they were staying out there in their tents, and they put in these, you know, kind of rough board floor things, and some of the guys that were really good with metal get those 55-gallon cans and cut them into stoves so they could have something to warm up with. And I know that he was down there because he bought one of those puzzle boxes that says Isle of Capri on it, and it's one of those trick boxes that you have to figure out how to open, which I never did actually. It looks like a book, but you have to slide these things. So the really smart woman that I used to work with, I just handed it to her, and she says, "Here, this is how it works." And she pulled it all apart.
Don't you love that?
She know your dad.
She could have. So anyway, that's where I keep all of his medals and his
He was stationed in Cherry Nola
Cherry Nola. The nuns of Cherry Nola did their laundry.
in Italy.
in Cherry Nola.
Cherry Nola.
Okay, Cherry Nola. Yeah.
I did see it on a map, but I know when he came home, I said, well, what are these colored cross stitches in your underwear? And he said, oh, well, that was the laundry marks that the nuns of Cherry Nola did their laundry. That was the laundry mark.
Well, I didn't know that.
Dad looked up a lot of that stuff on the internet. But he went the Isle of Capri on R&R.
Okay.
The base had to be somewhere over here where Aviano is now,
Mhm.
because that's the area. Because they were flying to Romania, so that would have been the area they would have flew from.
They were flying everywhere.
Yeah.
Actually, I brought this
And
back.
I know some of it was in the
He's
Well,
got-
Romania.
he has a list in here of every flight.
Till you got down.
And it's got all of the flights here, everyone 1 through 50, and where their target was. And in number 45, that's where he got his Purple Heart. They were flying to where were they? Oh, Bucharest. And they had a lot of flak and just general, just bad weather, bad everything. And
You suppose they had dental stress?
but he said that none of them got hurt. And he said it was such a horrible time to be flying there that the only reason that he got this purple heart was because he said they took a hit when he was reaching up for something over his head and a piece of plexiglass came and cut his wrist on the gap between his gloves and his jacket. So he got an entire Band-Aid sort of.
But he got Purple Heart.
He got a purple heart for that.
And you know what he told me one time? That he never cared about the Purple Heart. It was somebody else that wanted it. And so he had to write up all this thing so he'd be able to.
Well, that's what he thought. He just thought it wasn't, it wasn't worth
It wasn't anything, yeah.
But when he was coming back home from overseas, Mom told us, don't ask him anything about that they're getting injured over there. She thought he'd done lost an arm and a leg. She didn't want us to say anything about it.
Well, we had old Leo Conway stay with us, shell shock and all that stuff.
Tell Ron.
I don't know why he did.
And he went to college, Connors College,
Leo Conway.
He did.
and mother did his laundry.
Really
So one day she told Daddy, fix this clean laundry one Sunday up to John.
Stayed at the same.
And I went with you, and all of a sudden I'm walking up these stairs and people are yelling, girl, second girl, boy, girl. And I didn't know what. I never.
And Louise says, where?
I said, I'm never going to Connors College. I didn't.
So anyway, his last mission in Europe was August of 44, and when they came back, he came back at Boca Raton in Florida and then sat. He really didn't like Boca Raton, as far as I can tell. He put in often to get transferred, and but they finally offered him a re-up to anywhere he wanted to go just about the time that the end of the war was announced, in which case he decided he didn't need to re-up. And so he went to Honda Field to be separated. And that's what I know from the records.
Well, his most famous mission was in,
I got a
Yeah.
good story to tell though. Louis kind of idolized John. Well,
which sister did?
he came,
The man was a saint.
he came home
I thought he was.
and you know, he'd get this jog and he had these kind of silk like swimming truck type things. Oh, Louis is going to smooth it with an iron. She burned him.
They weren't nearly as slick
No, they were cooler.
Uncle John's famous mission is the one that the group flew the plane into.
That was not a mission.
That was an assignment.
That was a sting.
Anyway, it's on PBS all the time, and Uncle John says that pilot, he was such a hot dogger.
Did he ever tell you about flying into the hurricanes down there?
Low.
He flew 3 missions into the eye of a tornado.
A hurricane. Oh, you mean when he was flying with the sun catcher?
No,
No, when he was in Boca Raton.
No, we didn't mention hurricanes in Boca
He
Raton.
didn't
ask about that.
The first one was a B-25. Now, I don't know. He said we had more water in the plane. Old B-25.
Had quite a bit of rain, they could see it right
And, but he flew 2 more missions after that in the hurricanes down there.
I can tell you about B-25, because I used to work on them and fly with her after the war. Now,
Noisy thing you were.
it was noisy, but just a story here, because when I really new in the Air Force and when I was first in training as a flight mechanic. Anyway, within this B-25, flying along, and the best place in the B-25 that you get was up in the nose. It's plexiglass nose up here, and the bomb site was placed for it right here in front. And it had 3 seats up there, and I was going along there just fat and happy, like usually I am. But anyway, there was 3 of us up there, and this one guy had been a bombardier on airplanes, and he was telling this story of, he was war stories, you know, to these young airmen. Anyway.
As real as these.
Anyway, and he was talking about, said, most of the time there, they had the bomb sight here, and so we said somebody didn't do it, and he hit a salvo switch, and it opened the bomb bay door, and all the bombs came out. Well, this airplane had been worked on and fixed where it was just from all people. You didn't have any of them. But somebody had forgotten to do this switch. In the bomb bay, we had a shelf built where we put 2 boxes in the bags and stuff like that. Well, when he hit that switch there, the old weapon was boom. Well, there was 3 people hit that little bitty tunnel trying to get back to the Nobody going to get back up here and let everybody get through. You got to wondering, now did the toolboxes fall out of this? We got back up there and looked around, see what everybody figured out what it was, because you couldn't see the Bombay on the B-25.
So where were you at the time?
Huh? I was one of those that was trying to get back there.
I meant what part of the country were you at? Which country were you bombing at the time?
We're running off, cars went out here.
They were in Texas.
Klein, Indiana.
Up there and finally got to look around there and one little light on the cockpit said the Bombay doors were open. I put the switch, they closed. We weren't, just what all did we do? Did we lose all of our bags?
14 civilians were killed today, mostly by toolboxes.
So happy there was
Friendly
none of
fire.
them.
I'm guessing friendly fire.
There was 3 airmen that were sure plugged in. Just barely big enough to get through it.
Sounds like the Three Stooges.
I think it's one of the places Frank had his privileges, I think, before it was through, but I was the last one.
Did y'all win a Purple Heart?
We had a C-119 one time, we flew into Lackland. And this old sergeant scared to death of a C-119. I don't blame him.
They weren't called flying coffins.
He landed in Lackland. He got off and got a bus or airplanes can get you in lots of trouble. You was talking about them dead reckoning all the way over in 130 miles. Well, we one time was in C-54, so we'd been up Limestone, Maine, coming back, and it got thunderstorms. You know these thunderstorms like you saw all spring here, big ones.
We're used to.
And we was coming back there, and we didn't have a whole lot of navigation equipment on early there. We had one little thing there, they called it a bird dog. It pointed, you dialed in a station and it pointed to it. Well, it pointed to thunderstorms just as easy as it we were coming down through the east coast, we were coming back towards Fort Worth, and we got there and we find an opening in the clouds and they go down in here and we run around trying to find something we could identify with a map, you know. This maps on there, you look at it and it had railroads out this way and highways out this way. Well, we couldn't find anything and we had to get back up in the clouds and then somebody said, well, we will take a practice VF steer. We thought, the pilot said that's what we'll do. We find out really where we are. We don't really know we're lost. But we don't want to admit it. The last thing we want to do is admit that we're lost. But they finally called up whoever there and wanted to practice VF steer. That's one they could use the triangular thing there. Where was that? Where was that? You know, the direction. Well, we finally found out where was that. We was right over Washington, D.C.
Pretty close.
They had
Now where the toolbox is dropped?
They had airplanes that stacked up, what they call stacked up, and they move up here and go up here, and when they got a chance to land, well, they would go down. Well, they had them up to 13,000 feet, over 5,000 feet, coming right. They told us how to get out of there.
Polite language, I'm sure.
Run, do not walk.
That's some of those times that
Mariana, did you know about that?
Just
Later.
scary, but it was, you know, you kind of worried about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You was concerned.
How old were you?
Huh?
How old were you?
Oh, 19, 18.
6 foot tall and bulletproof. Yeah. Uncle Leonard.